When he stopped being an official royal, Prince Harry had his security downgraded. He fought that decision through the courts, but today he lost.
Does that mean that he, his wife Meghan and their children can never visit the UK? Or will it just become a convenient excuse as to why he won't see his father, the King?
Well, in the last few moments, Camilla, the Court of Appeal has refused the Duke of Sussex's legal attempt to upgrade his security. This story goes right back to March 2020 when Prince Harry stepped back from royal duties, and because of that and the fact that he was going to live or now lived in America, his security was downgraded. This seemed to have a real effect on his attitude towards what he imagined to be the UK authorities and the UK establishment thought about him and his wife, Meghan. He fought that decision taken by the Home Office through the courts. He went to the High Court and it was seen as being proportionate that that downgrade should happen. He then appealed that to the Court of Appeal, and today the Court of Appeal said that it agreed with what the High Court had said about the Home Office's decision, that it was proportionate and it wasn't irrational. Let's hear Sir Geoffrey Voss handing down that judgment just a few minutes ago.
The decisions taken in the decision letter and subsequently were taken, I said in my judgment, as an understandable and perhaps predictable reaction to the Duke of Sussex having stepped back from royal duties and having left the UK to live principally overseas. So the conclusion, in my judgment, with which my colleagues, Lord Justices Bean and Edis, agreed, was that the Duke of Sussex's appeal would be dismissed.
We may have got a hint that he was going to lose this case by the fact that he hasn't appeared in court. So when it was initially heard a couple of weeks ago, he was there in person, and that was quite a surprise to everyone because he's obviously travelled to the UK and not had too many concerns about security to be in the country. He's always made the point that this is about him, his wife and his children. And he had always tried to suggest that this was some way of the authorities, the so-called men in grey suits, of stopping him from visiting the UK with his family. I never quite bought that argument because had they made an exception for him, even though he is now of an inferior status to a full-time working royal, I mean, he's a royal in a way like Princess Beatrice and Eugenie. He doesn't have any proper status as a working member of the royal family anymore. In fact, he's been stripped of his royal and military patronages. He therefore then goes down to sort of minor royal status, and as Beatrice and Eugenie don't have taxpayer-funded bodyguards, why should he? And then the counter-argument to that was, well, Harry, you've put your own security in jeopardy because you've boasted in your autobiography Spare that you've killed 25 Taliban. And the story sort of went round and round and round. It would have set an interesting precedent, put it that way, if he had have been given special treatment after his departure from the royal family. Because what you're basically then saying is, if you can give Prince Harry and his family a bells and whistles, taxpayer-funded security response if they come to the UK, you may as well extend that to Taylor Swift or anyone else with a following and indeed a risk of being attacked by a group of people, a lone and fixated individual or someone else. Also, the couple have gone to visit countries like Colombia, which I would suggest aren't particularly safe in the scheme of things, and funded their own security there. After he came to the Court of Appeal original hearing, he then flew off to the Ukrainian border, which again probably isn't particularly safe either. This whole idea that this can be used as an excuse for the Sussex family to not return to the UK, let's be perfectly clear about this. If they return to the UK in an official capacity, i.e. for a major royal event, they'll be enveloped into the whole Home Office policing of the major royal event anyway. So their security won't be at great risk. This was about them visiting in a private capacity. So part of me has always thought, are you just using this as an excuse because Meghan doesn't want to come back to Britain? Presumably he does want his father, the King, to see his children, Archie and Lilibet, and it would be very sad if they don't, but it's not as if he would be coming here unprotected. They have bodyguards they pay for.
It shows that there's been just such a destruction of his relationships, both with his family, with his father, who he doesn't speak to, it appears, anymore, with the whole idea of being back in Britain. And this became sort of a cipher for all that sort of emotional aggression almost against what he believes the UK stands for. And just to be clear, that he still has what's described as exceptional status. So what the police and security authorities have told him is that each visit you make will be assessed and its risks looked at. And if those risks, given his exceptional status, are agreed to be high, he would be provided with security. So it was just whether it should be automatic was the argument. And then he offered private funding for the Metropolitan Police or the security services to provide him and his family security, which clearly is a position that cannot be allowed to happen, that people who are famous or somehow have this exceptional status can come here and pay for the police, because then you might have 100 people saying that in one weekend, and that simply isn't possible. He claimed he has this whole thing about his life being at stake, and clearly he has been unable to detach the logic of his situation, which now the High Court and the Court of Appeal have said does not hold water, from his emotional feeling about how Meghan, him and his family have been treated.
Yes,
what he says how he says they have been treated.
It continues this theme, doesn't it, that is often perpetuated by the Sussexes, and that's that it's them against the rest of the world. He actually told our Telegraph colleague Victoria Ward when he was in court that this was more important to him, this legal challenge, than his court cases against the tabloids. So he sort of saw it in his own mind as emblematic of everything that's gone on. The other point to make is the people that now look after his security, some of them did work for the Metropolitan Police. You know, they've gone into a private security capacity on behalf of the couple in America. I've been told repeatedly that they are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars over in Montecito protecting their realm, and fair play to them. But I think, unfortunately, in his own mind, I don't think that Prince Harry sees that he is of inferior status now. That's the result of all this. And he's on a par with any other celebrity. He's not a royal, he's not a working royal, and unfortunately
he's lost a lot, hasn't he? He's lost a lot, and maybe he hasn't quite come to terms with that. He could appeal to the Supreme Court, but it feels like now a legal battle he simply isn't going to win.